those triple-double numbers.
No question
Scoring
about
just
it.
part of that story. And Victor Oladipo leading the surging Indiana Pacers, who have won 6 in a row and are rolling on the road against the Raptors. Welcome to the Auto Trader pregame show. Dennis Scott, Mike Patello here with you this evening. I'm that other guy, Chris Miles. We're here to get you ready for a double dose of those dinosaurs. They played here last night, playing here again. Kawhi Leonard is out. Kyle Lowry is in for tonight's game against the Indiana Pacers. Miles Turner out for Indiana as well. That game is tipping off at 7:30. It's only fitting that Toronto faces the team with the third best record in the East to finish a week full of big tests. To start you out, earlier this week, Toronto started against the Stifle Tower and Donovan Mitchell. Kawhi Leonard scored a career-high 45 points to start the week with that victory. Then Thursday night, Kawhi Leonard, Danny Green returned to San Antonio for the first time since being traded to Toronto. Kawhi got booed. Danny Green received applause. Their former team spread it out to a 19-point lead, and the Raptors lost by 18 to those surging Spurs. And as seen right here on NBA TV, the Raptors bounced back on Saturday night against Milwaukee. Toronto used a 15-2 run in the fourth quarter, get their first win in 3 tries this season against the Bucks. Here's Raptors head coach Nick Nurse on his 2 stars, Kawhi Leonard and Kyle Lowry.
What went into the decision to sit Kawhi out tonight?
Just resting him after a heavy week, and I think it's just the best thing to do.
Will you have Kyle back tonight?
Kyle is back.
You've had a million different lineups, a bunch of guys in and out of the lineup, but you've had Kyle or Kawhi in every single game. Is that coincidence, luck, or is it easier to rest one when the other one's playing?
It's luck. I'm not sure if it's good or bad luck. No, it's just coincidence, really. And, it's kind of goes with the territory, especially for us this year. We just got to get here every day and see who's healthy and ready to go, and then start figuring out what we're going to do.
So, Czar, Kawhi has rested the second night of back-to-backs all season. He's out again tonight. You think the Raptors will take this approach for the rest of the regular season?
I wouldn't be surprised if they did. Reason being, they actually only have 4 remaining back-to-back. So they've done it this far, and the whole thing is based on, we know we're going to be in the playoffs. We know we're going to be a high seed. Why take a chance and hurt our main guy by playing him in a game that we really shouldn't be playing him in? Remember, last year he played, 9 total games last year. Now he comes back this year, and they started out slowly with him. But they would like to get to the point where they feel comfortable. But remember, nowadays, it's not just one guy making the decision anymore. Mm-hmm. You're talking about agents, players, doctors, GMs, a lot of people involved in decision-making.
Including a head coach named Nurse. Now, who comes back? Kyle Lowry, a guy who's missed the last 6 games. Look, this team has been playing well without him. But with Kawhi Leonard out of the lineup, you heard Nick Nurse say, hey, it's good to have one or the other back in that lineup.
Yeah, you want to have one or your 2 best players out there at all times, but obviously the injury bug has been there for both guys all season long. But to go back with Kawhi Leonard real quick, guys, it's now in later. It's now because you want to make sure he stays healthy for the playoffs, and it's also later, Coach, because you want to make all the right moves to keep this man happy, because you know this summer you have to have another conversation with him to make sure he stays. So that's why it's like the old candy. It's now and it's later to make sure everything stays sweet.
You know, Lowry returning is really important to them because even though he's missed 11 games thus far this season, 6 in a row coming into tonight, remember, this guy's still second in the NBA in assists per game, right? Almost at 10, okay, the 10 mark. Then he's also listed free throw percentage, steals, minutes per game. This guy's really important to this team.
All right, let's take a look now at the Dodge road trip ahead. And by that, we mean the Pacers started off their time away from Indiana Friday night with a win over Chicago. They've won 6 in a row. The last team to beat Indiana, the Toronto Raptors. 3D, this team is finding ways to get victories even when Victor Oladipo scores less. They're now 8-1 when Oladipo plays and scores less than 16 points. What does that tell you about the rest of this group and their evolution?
Well, it tells me that Nate McMillan, coach, has done a heck of a job getting these guys in winning situations and having them feel confident. So when their best players out, they say, okay, we'll adjust a few things. We continue to share the basketball. We may run our offense through someone differently, but one thing stays consistent. We play hard every night. And that's one thing you can never take short about Nate McMillan, coach, make sure this team plays hard every night.
One similarity between both teams, they both have great depth. So when you're missing a key guy, they have somebody there to step up and take his place. And that's the opportunity for that guy to shine, and they need to take advantage of that.
And Oladipo did have a great scoring output against the Bulls and stepped up. So even in situations where they need him to score, he can get back to that the way he played last year.
And that's what's so much fun when you're watching Oladipo play, because now he's proven to us now back-to-back years he can get to the basket whenever he wants to. He still gets to the free throw line. But to your point, Chris, he can give you that outburst of 40, but he doesn't need to every night. To your point, Coach, where the team is so deep now where he can have a pedestrian 18 or 19, and then the rest of those guys, Turner, the rest of those guys score points to kind of hold down the fort. So deep team, understanding who they are, but they play hard every night. That's why I'm not surprised at this team anymore.
Not surprising at all to see the Raptors and the Pacers both near the top of the standings in the Eastern Conference because of what they bring to the table defensively. So many different players that are versatile on that end of the floor. How is Indiana able to do that with their talent?
Both teams are good defensively. Indiana is better. This is the #1 team in the NBA at opponents' points per game, #3 in opponents' field goal percentage. And why not take a look at how they play that defense? A little bit different, a little more unorthodox. Let's watch now in transition. There's the big man, communication. I got back. Now, why would you take the ball at the #1 shot blocker in the NBA like that and let him block it, and at the other end, an easy fast break layup? Watch the big man help. Sabonis stays with the ball. Oladipo anticipates that the crossover's coming. He reaches in from behind. I think you like getting buckets like this where he's out in front and he's a guy who can finish. Again, on the sideline, this is what I said about being unorthodox. How many teams do you see trap the ball, use the sideline as another defender? Sabonis anticipates, rotates over, comes up with the steal, and then once again, they're off on offense at the other end of the floor. So this is a very aggressive defense. It's a defense that has the offense on its heels at time, trying to anticipate. Remember, steals are huge for them to get out in fast breaks.
Certainly an exciting game we're going to see tonight between the Toronto Raptors and the Indiana Pacers, tipping off just after 7:30. We've already had a full afternoon of action. The T-Wolves bringing it to the Lakers.
Ooh, cat. Meow.
Oh, that other team in LA, the Clippers, bringing it to Orlando. Montrezl Harrell apparently attacking the rim, the theme for tonight. And how about the Brooklyn Nets? Yes, one of the hottest teams in the league, looking to win their 12th game in 15 tries. Griff, stop me if you've heard this before. Jimmy Butler not happy about his situation. Why is this different than any other time we've heard this from Jimmy Butler?
Well, if you've just suspend the fact that it's Jimmy Butler and you don't think about what's happened to him historically in the past to get to this point, this specific episode is not that unique. This happens often. Players will challenge coaches in meetings during film, etc. It just doesn't get out. To me, what's significant about this issue is not that it's Jimmy saying he's uncomfortable with the offense, because I would bet Jimmy's had conversations with Brett Brown, where he's shared these thoughts privately as well. He's probably told Brett when he came over, look, I run hot. This is how I work. I'm really competitive. I'm going to burst out once in a while. Come back at me the same way, because I know he wants you to push back just as hard. What's meaningful to me is it got out. And that, to me, is representative of the fact that there's been some discord there already. They've already had issues with the fit of Joel and Ben Simmons a little bit. They've had issues along the way where people aren't necessarily happy with the fit and role. And when you're 25-14 and you're playing as well as they're playing, it's unusual to have that level of discontent.
I agree with you. I'm a little bit worried that it got out. But we've seen the situation before with Jimmy. Some stuff has got out. My biggest thing that worries me, though, is this is Jimmy's third stop. Normally in baseball, they say 3 strikes and you're out. And he's had problems, whether it be with young players, coaches, other star players, at every single stop. There was rumors that him and Derrick Rose had a little bit of a riff. Same thing with him and Karl Anthony Towns and Wiggins. Now we see this here. with the coaching staff. We see the situation with him and Embiid a little bit. Seems like they're going back and forth. I just see a lot of smoke. And for somebody that is going to be up for a maximum extension, you would think that Jimmy Butler would be on his best behavior. If I'm some of the other teams in the league and I'm thinking about throwing max dollars at this guy, that has to be a red flag. I have to start to consider maybe this isn't the guy. Maybe I go after somebody that's less talented but more tolerable in my locker room, because money just makes you more of what you already are. This guy has been here 6 weeks, and he's already cutting up, talking about he needs the ball, challenging the coaching staff. What do you do, and what do you think is going to happen if you give him $200 million? He might cut a slam full.
No, and I think that's true, and certainly because it's Jimmy, you do take into account the history. But I do think it's incredibly common for these conversations to take place and for players to be uncomfortable with their role, particularly when the fit of the pieces is as wonky as it is in Philly. Everybody wants things to be a little different. You remember earlier, Joel was not happy that he was playing so far away from the rim, and the reason they were doing that was a la Brook Lopez, they were trying to open the floor for Ben. So there's already those seeds of discontent. So what Jimmy then ends up doing is he makes the situation seem much worse. But I think there have been several times in the league where you thought it was a brush fire and there wasn't even smoke. And if it wasn't Jimmy Butler, I don't think this is even a story. But because it's Jimmy, that's the story. And to me, the story is it got out and they're unhappy winning this much.
I don't know. It just doesn't sit right with me, because he had the problem with Karl Anthony Towns in Minnesota and who was the guy. And now we see the situation here. I can't be used like, whoa. When you're not the guy, you have to figure out how to play with the guy. It's the same thing that we experienced in Cleveland. Kevin Love was not happy with his role. He didn't challenge Blatt. He didn't challenge T. Lue. He eventually figured out how to play with LeBron James because he was not the best player on that team. I don't know if Jimmy Butler has gotten that memo that Embiid is the best player on that team. And that worries me, once again, if I'm another team or if I'm a GM thinking about throwing this guy money. Like, if you're the Lakers and you're going after Jimmy Butler, is he going to get in line with LeBron James dominating the ball out here? Like, these are all the questions that you have to ask yourself when you bring Jimmy Butler in here. He is costing himself money by the day.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with the costing himself money thing. If it gets out that Philadelphia does not offer him max, it will be a very bad sign. And other teams around the league will wonder what's wrong. And they will agree, well, this is a problem for Jimmy. But if Philly is going after him full bore and they're offering him max, I think that will be something that teams sort of mitigate. And Kevin Love, you're right. He wasn't initially comfortable with his role, and it took him a long time to find peace with what was being asked of him. He was still voicing it. It's just that he had a different style of doing that. He approached it differently. You have to know that Jimmy's going to be a guy who's going to be all fire and come at you direct all the time. That's who he is. So, again, if he had not had the issues he had, I don't even care that he's uncomfortable where he's at right now. It's fine. But to your point, because he's done it so many times, he could potentially cost himself money if he doesn't eventually assimilate and be somebody who helps them win basketball games.
I just think that one of my favorite boxers is Miguel Cotto, and he had a line when he was talking to another fighter. He said, in every fight I was in, I've always known what side I was, whether I was the A side or the B side. I don't think Jimmy Butler realizes sometimes what side he's on. He's the B side. He's acting like he's the A side. You can't come in here talking about, hey, I want to be used this way and I want this, that, and the third. This is Joel Embiid's team. You need to do things in a more diplomatic type of way. You need to talk to Joel. You need to figure out how we're going to play together. But you have to understand, everything runs through the big fella. And I don't think that Jimmy Butler is all the way on board with that.
So, Brendan, we've fully explored Jimmy Butler's side of this, but you see the Brett Brown quote on the screen. I didn't think it went over the line. If it did, I would have addressed it.
He has to say that, though.
So for Brett Brown going forward, the rest of the guys on the team, whether it's Joel Embiid or Ben Simmons, the other people he has to deal with, is this something that may hamper his job going forward if Jimmy Butler is able to speak out in this way and there's not repercussions?
No question. We don't know if it went over the line or if it didn't. But here, let's just say for devil's advocate, it went over the line. He's officially just lost that locker room because now no one respects him. If it went over the line and people think it went over the line and then he comes out and covers and says, oh, no, it didn't go over the line, it's okay, and he doesn't check Jimmy, now people think you're soft. And now what happens, the ripple effect is when Brett Brown wants to yell at Landry Shamet, he's going to be looking up there like, you don't talk to Jimmy like that. Don't come at me all hard. Don't with all that fire. And coaches slowly but surely, the trust erodes away, and people just start looking at you like, yeah, whatever. And that's what happens, and that's part of this as well. Jimmy has to understand when he does this, it's not just about Jimmy. That's part of the problem. I think he's living in a Jimmy world, and he's only thinking about Jimmy Butler. He's like the NBA's version of Antonio Brown.
We talked about this when they brought him in. They were absolutely increasing both their ability to be really good out of timeout late and design some things that opponents can't deal with. And they were also really increasing their volatility. And Jimmy brings that 100%. There's no question because of how hot he runs. I look at this, though, and I think a team that's this good, they're 25-14 overall. They're playing at a very high level in general terms since Jimmy got there. When you come into the season with the expectations they had, and the only thing that's going to spell success for you is making it to a finals or at least an Eastern Conference Finals, you're either all the way with me or you're all the way against me. So where this becomes interesting is come trade deadline, if they've got people in that room that are against them, they need to act on it because that's the one thing that unequivocally derails a season. This kind of thing is adversity, which is opportunity. You galvanize from this or you get radically worse, but at least it reveals something to you. Where this becomes actually meaningful, and I liked his quote saying what he said, but when this becomes actually meaningful is, A, if you're right about losing the locker room, which certainly I don't think you can say he's done to this point, but if they're not all the way on board with what's being asked of them as a team, then Elton Brand's going to have to start to jettison some of those pieces who aren't. And that's when this becomes intriguing to me.
Well, that's the problem. I think the pieces that you're talking about is Jimmy Butler.
Wow, and they just acquired him, 21 games ago.
It was all good just a week ago.
Mavericks, one of those games, one of 8 games tonight. Also, the Raptors-Bucks, this game we're waiting for, 8:30 right here on NBA TV. That guy, Nikola Jokic, had himself a game. Highlights coming your way.